The CEO's daughter slapped me in front of everyone, and her mother, the woman who signed my paychecks, ordered me to apologize. But when I played the recording I had been saving, the entire office fell silent. I never thought a simple job at a marketing firm could turn into a battlefield of egos, manipulation, and humiliation. My name is Mackenzie, and for the last 3 years, I've been working at Eden Global, a mid-sized company that liked to think of itself as the family that innovates together. That slogan was plastered across every hallway, every email signature. We're a family. But behind those glass walls and polite smiles, there were politics sharper than any blade. My mornings used to start the same way. The smell of coffee drifting through my small apartment, my cat, Milo, curling around my ankles as I packed my laptop and headed for the subway. I liked my routine. Predictable, safe, quiet. I'd reach the 21st floor by 8:45, swipe my ID, and greet the same faces. Mostly tired, polite smiles, and that one overly cheerful receptionist who always said, "Another day in paradise, huh?" I used to laugh at that, until I stopped believing it. When I joined the company, I worked hard, harder than I probably should have. I stayed late, fixed presentations other people messed up, and kept quiet when my ideas got stolen during meetings. I didn't come from privilege. I didn't have connections. I just had grit, and I thought that would be enough. But then Claire arrived. Claire was the CEO's daughter. Fresh out of grad school, loud, confident, and determined to make everyone know exactly who she was. She walked in like she owned the air itself. And technically, she kind of did. First, I tried to be kind. I offered help, shared files, explained things she didn't understand. But kindness in the wrong place is like bleeding in shark water. It only invites attack. She began cutting me off in meetings, mocking my suggestions, whispering jokes to her little circle of interns whenever I spoke. I tried to shrug it off, telling myself she was just insecure. But one morning, I overheard her say something that made my stomach drop. "Mom says Mackenzie's just a worker bee. Good for small tasks, not big ideas." Her mom, Mrs. Harrington, Theo, the woman who'd shaken my hand during my first day and told me, "We reward integrity here." I remember staring at my reflection in the restroom mirror that day, the hum of fluorescent lights above me, my lipstick slightly smudged from the coffee I'd been clutching too tightly. I wanted to scream to tell her how unfair it was. But I couldn't. Not yet. Because I needed this job. My rent had gone up. My mom was sick, and I was helping pay her medical bills. So I smiled through the pain, kept my head down, and told myself, "It's just work. It's not personal." But that lie didn't last long. Things escalated when Claire was assigned to lead the Anderson campaign, our biggest client of the quarter. And I apparently was her assistant. Except I wasn't supposed to be her assistant. I was supposed to co-lead that project. It was my concept, my pitch. I remember sitting in the meeting room when the CEO made the announcement, her voice calm, deliberate. Given Claire's background in strategic communication, I think it's only fair she takes the lead. "Mackenzie, you'll support her." Support her. I smiled on the outside, but my hands were shaking under the table. When I glanced at Claire, she gave me a small triumphant smirk, the kind that says checkmate. From that moment, my days turned into quiet torture. Claire would assign me impossible deadlines, take credit for my work, and belittle me in front of the team. And through it all, I kept notes. Every comment, every instruction, every insult. Not because I wanted revenge, but because deep down I knew one day I might need proof. I'd go home at night and replay everything in my head, sitting in the dark with only Milo beside me. His soft purring the only thing keeping me sane. The smell of cold takeout filled my kitchen. My reflection in the microwave door looked tired, older. That's when I realized, this wasn't just about a spoiled girl with power. This was about me. About every woman who'd been told to stay quiet and be professional when they were disrespected. I didn't know it yet, but the moment I decided to start recording my conversations with Claire, that was the day my quiet survival turned into something else entirely. That was the day the story really began. The tension started small, like hairline cracks on glass. First, no one noticed. Not even me. But soon, every polite smile hit a judgment. Every good morning felt heavy with something unspoken. It began with emails. Claire would copy the entire department on a thread and remind me of tasks she'd already dumped on me privately. Mackenzie, please don't forget to redo the Anderson brief. The tone wasn't quite strategic enough. The tone. She used that word a lot. Strategic. It meant whatever makes me look better. I'd type and retype my responses trying to sound calm, but every word felt like a small surrender. I could almost hear her giggle from the corner office, where she'd sit with her heels on the desk, scrolling her phone. One Tuesday morning we had a team meeting to present campaign drafts. I'd spent the entire weekend perfecting the pitch deck. Fonts, visuals, data, everything. I was nervous but proud. When it was time to present, Claire smiled and stood up. Before we begin, I'd like to thank Mackenzie for helping me prepare this presentation. Helping her. That was the first stab. Then she began clicking through the slides, my slides, explaining my ideas as if they'd been hers all along. I sat there frozen, my hands gripping the pen so tightly it left an imprint on my skin. When the CEO, her mother, nodded approvingly, something inside me broke. After the meeting, I cornered Claire near the break room. Me. You didn't even mention my name. Those were my concepts. Claire. Laughing softly, relax, Mackenzie. We're a team. Your work reflects on me. My success reflects on you. That's how it works. Me. That's not teamwork, that's theft. Claire. Call it what you want. But Mom signs your checks, not you. Her perfume, something sharp and expensive, lingered in the air long after she walked away. I remember standing there, my coffee growing cold, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. That night I couldn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, watching car headlights move across the room. I started recording voice notes on my phone. Not of her, not yet, but of my own thoughts. Little things I noticed. Small patterns of cruelty. It made me feel less powerless, like I was documenting something real. The next week things got worse. Claire began using me as her personal scapegoat. When a client didn't like a design, she'd say, "Oh, Mackenzie must have misunderstood my instructions." If a deadline was missed, Mackenzie was supposed to send that out. And the CEO believed her. Always. One day, during a particularly brutal meeting, Claire accidentally spilled her coffee all over my printed reports. Claire. Oops, sorry. You should really keep a backup, Mackenzie. Me. You did that on purpose. Claire. You think I care enough to do that on purpose? The room laughed. Even the CEO chuckled. I forced a smile, but inside I wanted to disappear. The humiliation burned hotter than the coffee soaking through the papers. When I got home that night, I threw the reports in the trash and sat on the kitchen floor for an hour, Milo pawing at my sleeve. That's when I realized something crucial. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a setup. Claire wasn't just cruel, she was strategic. She wanted me gone. And the worst part? She was winning. I could see it in how coworkers avoided my gaze, how whispers followed me in hallways. Did you hear what she did? Claire said Mackenzie messed up again. It was suffocating. So I started recording. Quietly. Carefully. Every meeting. Every insult disguised as feedback. Every time Claire spoke to me like I was beneath her. At first, I didn't know what I'd do with those recordings. Maybe I just needed to hear the truth out loud. Maybe I needed proof that I wasn't crazy. But one afternoon, I overheard a conversation outside the CEO's office. A whisper between Claire and her mother. Mrs. Harrington. She's becoming a liability. I told you I don't like drama. Claire. Don't worry, Mom. I'll give her a reason to quit. Those words echoed in my mind like thunder. A reason to quit. I remember standing there, frozen behind the door, clutching my coffee so tight my nails dug into the paper cup. That was the moment I decided I wasn't going to quit. If they wanted a reason, I'd give them one. But not the kind they expected. Because if they thought they could destroy me in silence, they were about to learn how loud the truth could be. There's a kind of silence that feels heavier than sound. That's what my apartment became. A quiet prison of thoughts I couldn't turn off. Every night, I'd replay the day in my head. The fake smiles. The whispered laughter behind my back. The way people's eyes slid away when I entered the break room. It was like being erased, one small humiliation at a time. I started waking up before dawn, not because I wanted to, but because my body refused to rest. The moment I opened my eyes, the anxiety was already there, pressing against my chest like a weight I couldn't lift. The subway rides felt longer now. Every reflection in the glass showed a woman I barely recognized. Tired eyes, pale skin, a constant tremor in my hands. I clutched my coffee cup so hard that the lid sometimes popped off. I didn't even taste the coffee anymore. It just kept my hands busy, kept me from shaking. At work, things only got worse. Claire had become bolder, crueler, like she could smell my fear. One afternoon, she made a scene in front of the entire team. Claire. Mackenzie, did you even read the client brief? This is embarrassing. Me, I did, Claire. The client asked for. Claire. Don't talk back to me in front of everyone. Everyone froze. No one spoke. Then Claire laughed, brushing her hair over her shoulder as if it was all a joke. But the CEO's office door was open. She saw everything. And she said nothing. That was the moment I realized. No one was coming to help me. When I got home that night, I didn't even turn the lights on. I dropped my bag by the door, kicked off my shoes and sank to the floor. Milo crawled into my lap, purring softly. The only creature in the world who didn't look at me with judgment. And that's when I broke. The tears came in waves. Ugly, uncontrollable sobs that echoed through the tiny apartment. I pressed my palms against my mouth to keep from screaming, but my body wouldn't stop shaking. I had never felt so small, so powerless. In that moment I hated everything, the job, the office, the way I always said it's fine, when it wasn't. I hated that I had let them do this to me. I dragged myself to the bathroom, splashed cold water on my face and stared into the mirror. Who are you? I whispered. The woman staring back didn't answer. My phone buzzed, a new message from Claire. Claire. Hey, just a reminder. Mom wants you to apologize to me in tomorrow's meeting. Be professional, okay? Apologize. My stomach twisted. My mind went blank. She wanted me to apologize? For what? For being humiliated. For not letting her steal everything from me quietly? That night I couldn't eat. I couldn't even cry anymore. I just sat there, numb, listening to the ticking clock on the wall. Every tick felt like a countdown to my breaking point. But then something inside me shifted. I looked at my phone again, at all the messages, the voice memos, the saved recordings. And for the first time in weeks I didn't feel small. Because I remembered something Claire didn't know. That first week she arrived, she demanded that I record every client call. So she wouldn't have to take notes herself. She said it was for transparency. So I did. I recorded everything. And in those recordings she'd said things. Things that could ruin her. Things her mother would never want to hear. That realization hit me like oxygen flooding into my lungs. I wasn't powerless. Not anymore. I sat up straight, wiped my tears and opened my laptop. I started organizing everything, labeling folders, sorting files, backing up evidence. Each click felt like taking back a piece of myself. But there was one specific recording I remembered, one that still made my skin crawl. It was from 2 weeks ago, when she'd mocked me in her office after a client presentation. Claire recorded, God, she's pathetic. I only keep her around because Mom likes having someone to boss around. She actually thinks she matters. I listened to that line over and over, until the words stopped hurting and started fueling something else, resolve. Tomorrow she'd get her apology. Just not the kind she expected. As I turned off the lights and crawled into bed, I whispered to myself, they wanted a reason to fire me. Let's see if they can survive the truth. And for the first time in a long time I slept peacefully. The next morning I walked into Eden Global earlier than usual. The office was still half asleep. The hum of printers, the faint smell of burnt coffee, and that eerie calm before the chaos of another corporate day. For the first time in weeks my heart didn't race. My hands didn't shake. Because I had a plan. I knew that if I lashed out emotionally, they'd win. Claire and her mother thrived on reactions. They needed me to lose control so they could label me unstable. So I did the opposite. I smiled. I said good morning. I even brought donuts for the team. And when Claire arrived, late as usual, sunglasses on indoors, talking loudly on her phone, I simply greeted her like nothing had ever happened. That unsettled her. I could see it in her eyes. Claire, wow, you're chipper today. Feeling better after yesterday's meltdown. Me, actually, yes. I realized some things. Claire, oh? Like what? Me. That sometimes silence speaks louder than words. She smirked, pretending not to care. But for the first time she looked uncomfortable. All morning I worked quietly, pretending to fix reports and polish slides. In reality, I was building my armor. I went through weeks of recordings, hours of meetings, private conversations, one-on-one feedback sessions. I highlighted every insult, every manipulation, every line that exposed her true nature. But I didn't just want revenge. I wanted justice. And justice, I knew, required strategy. That afternoon during lunch I visited Janet, the HR manager, one of the few people in the company who still treated me like a human being. Janet had been there for 15 years. She'd seen every scandal, every whisper of office politics. Me. Janet, can I ask you something hypothetical? Janet. Raising an eyebrow. You mean about someone powerful doing something stupid? Me smiling faintly. Let's say a manager was verbally harassing an employee. Repeatedly. What would HR need to take action? Janet. Proof. Solid proof. Emails, recordings, witnesses. Why? Me, just curious. She gave me a knowing look. Be careful, Mackenzie. This place protects its own. I nodded. That was exactly what I was counting on. That night I didn't go straight home. I stopped by a small cafe across the street and sat by the window, watching the office tower glow against the evening sky. The city buzzed around me. Horns, chatter, laughter, but inside I felt a stillness. A clarity I hadn't felt in months. I took out my notebook and began writing. Step 1. Compile the evidence. Step 2. Set the stage. Step 3. Make them expose themselves. I needed more than just recordings, I needed the moment. The one thing they couldn't talk their way out of. So I started planting seeds. The next morning during a team huddle, I made a point to clarify something Claire had twisted before. Me. Just to be sure, Claire, you said you told the client their budget was doubled, right? Claire. Rolling her eyes obviously. Why? Me. Just making sure we're aligned. I wouldn't want another misunderstanding. Everyone looked up. Claire's arrogance blinded her. She didn't realize I was recording. Every interaction after that was deliberate. Calm. Professional. Documented. Over the next week I built my narrative carefully, emails, meeting notes, timestamps. When Claire snapped or made a cruel remark, I stayed silent. I let her fill the silence with her own arrogance. She thought she'd broken me. But I was rebuilding piece by piece behind her back. One evening as I was leaving the office, I bumped into the CEO in the elevator. Mrs. Harrington. Mackenzie, I hope things are smoothing out with Claire. Me smiling politely. They are actually. We've been communicating much better lately. Mrs. Harrington. Good. I'd hate for workplace drama to distract from results. Me, oh, don't worry, ma'am. I've been documenting everything, just to make sure results speak for themselves. She smiled faintly, clearly not realizing the double meaning. That night I organized one final folder, titled Transparency Recordings. It contained everything. Her insults, her lies, her laughter. And the crown jewel. A conversation she'd had 2 days ago in her office, completely unaware my phone was still recording. Claire recorded, Mom, if she doesn't apologize tomorrow, just fire her. She's lucky we haven't already. Mrs. Harrington. Fine. But make sure the board doesn't see your behavior in this. We can't have another PR issue. Claire, don't worry. No one will ever know. But I knew. And soon so would everyone else. Tomorrow I was supposed to apologize. I had been dreading it for weeks, the moment they'd force me to bow, to humiliate myself one last time. But now that meeting would be my stage. They wanted a spectacle? I'd give them one. Because I'd learned something powerful about revenge. It doesn't always scream. Sometimes it whispers. And sometimes it plays a recording. For weeks I played the obedient employee, quiet and compliant, nodding whenever Olivia spoke, pretending her words didn't sting. The office believed I'd given up, that I had accepted my humiliation. What they didn't know was that I had been building something, quietly, meticulously beneath their radar. My desk sat 3 seats away from Olivia's corner. From that spot I watched her every move. I saw how she doctored reports, changed financial figures before sending them to the board, and used the company's money for personal shopping sprees disguised as business expenses. Every receipt, every transaction, every falsified approval, saved, archived, and backed up in my personal cloud. Then one night she slipped. Olivia had stayed late, trying to finalize a report that would determine our department's quarterly funding. She left her office door open, her phone unlocked, and her laptop still running. I walked past, hesitated for a moment, and then stepped in. Not to steal, not to snoop, but to protect myself. I copied the files to my flash drive. I didn't touch anything else. The next morning she came in, radiant as ever, her lips red, her voice dripping superiority. "Mackenzie, coffee," she said. I smiled. "Of course," I replied, but this time my heart didn't race with fear. It pulsed with purpose. That afternoon the HR director called me in. "We've received complaints about your behavior," she said, sliding a paper across the table. Olivia stood behind her, smirking. I knew what this was. She was setting me up, trying to get me fired before I could do anything. I let her talk. I let her twist her narrative. I even let her accuse me of incompetence and insubordination. But when she was done, I quietly took out my phone and placed it on the table. "Before I sign anything," I said, "you should hear this." I pressed play. The recording filled the room. Olivia's voice, loud and cruel, mocking me, threatening to ruin my career, admitting to altering company data. The HR director froze. Her pen dropped. Is that you, Olivia?" she whispered. Olivia's smirk vanished. "That's not. This is taken out of context." But before she could finish, I handed over the folder. "And here," I said, "are the expense reports and emails linking her to falsified budgets." Silence. Then chaos. HR called for compliance. Compliance called for the CEO. Within an hour, the conference room turned into a battlefield. Olivia tried to spin her story, cried, shouted, and begged, but the evidence spoke louder than her tears. As I stood outside the glass room watching, I felt still. Not triumphant. Not vengeful. Just free. For the first time, I didn't feel like prey. Later that evening, the CEO himself called me into his office. "Mackenzie," he said quietly, "why didn't you come to us sooner?" I looked at him, calm and steady. "Because no one listens to the person at the bottom until the top starts to crumble." He said nothing for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. "You've done more for this company today than most people in this building ever will." The next morning, Olivia's desk was empty. Her nameplate gone. Her access revoked. Rumors spread that she had been terminated pending investigation. But that wasn't the end. It was only the beginning of what came next, because her mother, the CEO's wife and head of HR, wasn't going to let her daughter's downfall go unpunished. And as I walked out of the building that evening, the sky blazing orange, I knew the real storm was still coming. The morning after Olivia's dismissal, the office didn't feel the same. The air was thick. Every conversation carried a tremor of fear. People whispered in hallways, eyes darting away when I passed. Some looked at me with admiration, others with suspicion. It was strange how quickly people shift their loyalty when power changes hands. Yesterday they laughed behind my back. Today they avoided eye contact. I should have felt vindicated, but instead I felt hollow. By noon I was called into the executive conference room again. This time it wasn't HR. It was the CEO himself, sitting across from me, flanked by 2 board members and the company's legal counsel. "Mackenzie," the CEO began, his voice low, "you've uncovered something serious. We've initiated a full investigation into Olivia's actions. But," he paused, eyes heavy with something I couldn't quite read, "you should know her mother isn't taking this lightly." I nodded. I already knew. Mrs. Langford, Olivia's mother, wasn't just the HR director. She was the CEO's wife, and she had built this company alongside him. To her, I wasn't just an employee who exposed corruption. I was the girl who humiliated her family. That night I stayed late again. The lights in the building were dim, and the sound of rain echoed against the windows. My inbox flooded with anonymous messages. Threats, insults, even one that said, "You'll regret this." I tried to ignore them. I told myself that justice comes with a price. But when I saw my access card deactivated the next morning, my stomach turned cold. Security escorted me to IT. "Just a temporary suspension," they said. "Standard procedure during investigations." But I knew better. This was Mrs. Langford's doing. She was tightening the noose. Later that afternoon, I received a call from an unknown number. Her voice was unmistakable. "You think you've won, Mackenzie?" she said, calm but sharp. "You destroyed my daughter's future. You made this company bleed. But you'll learn that people like you don't get to walk away clean." I didn't respond. Silence was my only weapon now. Days passed. Then weeks. I was placed on administrative leave. My emails were monitored. My work laptop confiscated. Rumors spread that I had framed Olivia. The same people who once pitted me now whispered that I was dangerous. One night, sitting alone in my apartment, I scrolled through the news feed. And there it was. Langford Industries faces internal scandal. CFO daughter under investigation for fraud. The story had leaked to the press. Investors panicked. Stocks plummeted. I should have felt satisfaction. Instead, I felt something else, guilt. Because I knew this wasn't just Olivia's fall. It was an avalanche. Hundreds of employees might lose their jobs. The company was collapsing under the weight of secrets I had helped uncover. Then one morning I received a letter hand-delivered. It was an official notice. Termination due to restructuring. No severance. No thank you. Just a single line at the bottom. "We wish you the best in your future endeavors." I sat there for a long time staring at the words. The revenge I had dreamed about for months had left me unemployed, isolated, and uncertain. But there was a strange kind of peace in it too, because for the first time I wasn't afraid anymore. They could take my job, my reputation, but not the truth. And the truth, as I would soon learn, had a way of finding light. Because the day after my termination, an email arrived from an investigative journalist. She had read my anonymous tip and wanted to expose the entire Langford empire. I looked out the window, watching the city lights shimmer through the rain, and whispered to myself, "This isn't the end. It's just the fallout." It's been 3 months since I walked out of Langford Industries for the last time. 3 months since I traded my security badge for silence and started over. Some days I still wake up expecting to see that glass building. The smell of burnt coffee, the clicking of keyboards. Then I remember I'm free. But freedom isn't as light as I imagined. It's heavy with the memories of everything I lost, and everything I became. After the company scandal went public, the fallout was brutal. Olivia fled overseas. Her mother, Mrs. Langford, resigned under pressure, and the CEO, the man who once called me like family, sold his shares and disappeared from the media. The journalist who reached out to me published a full exposé. Inside the Langford empire. Lies, power, and the woman who spoke up. She never used my name, but everyone knew. My phone was flooded with calls, some from reporters, others from strangers thanking me for standing up. I didn't feel like a hero. Heroes sleep at night. I barely could. Revenge gives you a high, an illusion that justice is balance. But it's not. It's a storm. And when it's over, you're standing alone in the wreckage, holding pieces of what's left of yourself. Still, something beautiful happened amid the chaos. I got a message from one of the interns who had witnessed everything. She wrote, "Thank you for proving that power can't silence everyone. You made me realize I don't have to stay quiet." That message, it broke me a little. In the best way. Because maybe my story wasn't about revenge anymore. Maybe it was about truth and what it costs to tell it. I started consulting for smaller companies, helping them build transparent HR systems, ensuring no one would ever experience what I did. It didn't pay as much, but every time an employee came to me and said, "You made things safer for us," I felt a piece of my soul heal. One evening I was walking along the pier, the sky melting into gold and crimson, when I got another email from Olivia. I froze. For a moment I considered deleting it. But curiosity won. It read, "Mackenzie, you destroyed everything I thought I deserved. But I've had time to think. You were right about me. About what I did. I don't expect forgiveness. I just hope you find peace because I'm trying to find mine." I didn't reply. Not out of anger, but because I finally understood something I hadn't before. Revenge isn't about the other person. It's about reclaiming the part of yourself they broke. That night I wrote in my journal, "Justice doesn't erase the past, it gives it meaning." I closed the book, looked out at the dark sea, and smiled for the first time in months. Now, when people ask me if I regret what I did, I tell them this. No. I regret trusting the wrong people. But I don't regret standing up for myself. Because that's what the story was always about. Not revenge, not power, not even the downfall of a CEO's daughter. It was about a woman who refused to stay silent. And maybe that's all the justice any of us really need, to know that when someone tries to erase us, we still have the courage to speak. So if you've ever been betrayed, humiliated, or silenced, remember this. Your voice has power. It might shake, it might tremble, but it's still yours. And one day that voice might be the very thing that saves you, or someone else. If you've ever faced something like I did, hit like, share your story in the comments, and subscribe for more stories that remind us that truth always finds its voice. Because in the end, it's not revenge that heals you. It's clarity.